Well, it's that time of the month again where we look at the horror movies that are coming to Tubi and pick out 5 that are worth watching with a few honorable mentions at the end. And that's it for the intro. Let's talk movies. Don't Breathe is a 2016 high-tension psychological home invasion thriller with strong horror elements. That was produced by Sam Raimi, though not written or directed by him. It's about a girl and her friends who break into a blind man's house with the intent of robbing him, just to end up becoming his victim instead. This movie is clever and definitely worth watching if you're looking for something different. It's kind of like Hush, but if the roles were reversed and the person with the disability was the killer instead of the victim. I really like how suspenseful this movie gets at times. It can be very dark and quiet in certain spots, though the sound design is done well, so I never felt the need to keep adjusting the volume too much while watching it. The blind man turns out to be ex-military, so his house is completely locked down and he's fully prepared for a situation like this. Which is what makes this movie so tense, because it ends up playing out like an escape room with the robbers trying to survive and figure out how they can get out alive. It's one of those movies that keeps you on the edge the whole time and does a great job of flipping the script on what you'd expect from a home invasion horror movie. David Cronenberg's The Fly is a 1986 body horror reimagining of the 1958 monster movie starring Vincent Price. And it's very different from the original, leaning more into the psychological side of the story than the scientific one. It's about a scientist who invents a teleportation device and decides to test it on himself when a fly accidentally gets into the machine with him, and he sort of comes out becoming a bit of both. Some people see this as a metaphor for the AIDS scare of the 80s, but Cronenberg himself said it's more of a metaphor about aging, told through a love story wrapped in horror. A lot of people tend to prefer this version over the original because it's basically a masterpiece in practical effects, but I honestly love both versions for different reasons. Though at the end of the day, they both warn us about the dangers of taking technology too far. What really sets it apart from other body horror masterpieces of this era is the acting underneath all the makeup and prosthetics. Jeff Goldblum does an amazing job in this role, which really helped push him into that next level of Hollywood, which is a great example of why I say that horror is one of the most important genres in cinema, amongst many other reasons. It gets pretty gross and honestly kind of sad, but even with how different it is from the original, it still keeps that classic 1950s monster movie vibe about it, which is why I personally love this movie so much. It's a horror movie from the 80s that feels like something from the 50s. Fright Night is a 2011 cult classic supernatural teen horror comedy. That is a remake of the 1985 classic, but don't let this being a remake steer you away from it because it stands perfectly fine on its own. Yeah, they do the whole pretty boy vampire thing, but it's still a better story than Twilight. I haven't made fun of Twilight for a while. That felt good. The humor is rare, but it's there, and when it hits, it lands, so I did end up getting a few laughs out of this one. It's about a guy trying to figure out if his new neighbor is a vampire after kids start going missing from his school, which gave me Summer of 84 vibes. One of my favorite hidden gems if you have never seen it before. To me, comedy horror works best when it does a good job at balancing both the comedy with the horror. And this movie does a good job at that. It's funny when it needs to be, but it's still a vampire movie at its core. If you liked Abigail from 2024, you'll probably like this one too if you haven't seen it already. Some of the CGI gore hasn't aged well, but it doesn't end up holding the movie back. Blair Witch from 2016 is a found footage horror movie that takes place in 2014 based on the original classic The Blair Witch Project from 1999. About the baby brother of the girl who went missing in the first film, shooting a documentary of him and his friends going to look for answers years later. This one will spoil the original if you haven't seen it before, and seeing the original will definitely add to the tension of this one. But if you want to skip the original, that's fine here. I'm glad they went with the found footage documentary style for this sequel instead of trying something different like they did with Book of Shadows. They have wearable cameras, DSLRs, tripods, and drones, so the camera isn't as shaky as it was in the first movie, though it does have its shaky and glitchy moments, just a little more fine-tuned. The first act is a bit slow, but once things start to break down, it gets pretty tense. And just like the original, it's best experienced if you click play and give it your full attention, because it's just as much of a visual experience as it is an audio one. If you're not big into found footage movies, I do encourage you to give this one a chance because it is made by the people who started it all. But I also don't expect your opinion to change off this one because it is much more of the same. Though, that's what'll make it great for some people out there too. If you do like found footage movies, this is from the franchise that started them all and it feels it. Definitely the official sequel we deserved, more than Book of Shadows was. Ready or Not is a 2019 dark comedy horror movie about a bride who gets forced to play a lethal game of hide and seek with her new crazy elitist cult worshipping in-laws. I love this movie so much, and for the longest time, I always said it was a great example of a good standalone horror movie, and I don't think the recent sequel changed that for me. I liked both in different ways, but the second one didn't need to be made, and after watching it, it was fun, but I still feel like it didn't need to be made. Ready or Not is where my love for Samara Weaving really started to grow because she does such an amazing job in this role. Not just because of her good acting, but it's her scream queen performance here. She does a really great job of sounding convincing when terrified or in pain, and this movie does a great job of showcasing that side of her as an actress. So if you haven't seen Ready or Not before, it is coming to Tubi in Canada this month. But don't worry, my American neighbors, because you're also getting Bodies, 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 Hereditary, and The Final Girls. Also, just as an honorable mention of something that is not horror, Guillermo del Toro's Pacific Rim is a monster movie about humans inventing giant robots to defend against an alien threat, and it's a fun time. Tubi is also getting its sequel from 2018 as well. And one of the greatest bad movies of all time, Troll 2, is coming to Tubi in May. And they already have the best worst movie documentary that came out covering the craze around this movie after it resurfaced online as Troll Squared, aka Troll the Troll Movie, which is one of the best movies to talk through and make fun of ever made. But that's going to be it for me. Lots of stuff coming to Tubi for you this month, so I hope you find something to enjoy. And if you're into B-movies, cult classics, hidden gems, and horror, or just in the mood for something different than what the mainstream media has to offer you, like and subscribe. Or join our new Discord server pinned in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching.